Hi, Jonathan York, Bay Financial Partners, looking at the investment markets. Pretty interesting time, obviously, in the US equity markets. The highlight has been Apple, which was the first company to reach $1 trillion in terms of market valuation. Pretty amazing performance from a company that very nearly went bankrupt. That was really on the back of some pretty strong earnings coming through, also some reasonable guidance as well. And it's just been very interesting to see how the sort of US earnings season has sort of panned out on this quarter. Certainly earnings have been pretty reasonable, but also as well guidance is pretty good as well. Which is does tend to point to a pretty robust and strong US economy. That's really been backed up by the data in terms of the GDP, but really more importantly probably on the unemployment data. That's been pushing along pretty strongly and sort of, setting almost sort of record lows on a sort of monthly or bi-monthly basis. We certainly have more people coming into the workforce. You have record low unemployment. All you really need to see now is that little bit of wage sort of increase and wage cost inflation coming through, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, and will just sort of help certainly help the central banks. But certainly as well, it does sort of back up, Fed Jay Powell's estimate of the economy. It's a pretty robust economy, pretty strong economy, and I say that's really been backed up by the data and would appear to imply that the Fed will be looking at 2 more rate hikes this year in September and December. Obviously, you've still got the ongoing situation with the investigations into President Trump, and that's going to be interesting to see how that does sort of play through. He's finally come out now after denying it and then saying it did happen, but then it was about Russian adoption of children. He's come out and said actually there was a meeting that took place between his son and the Russian lawyer, and that was to find out about his opposition in the US presidential election. So again, another sort of flip-flop there, and maybe just trying to divert the issues and just sort of muddy the waters. Obviously there's been quite a period of sort of denial, now sort of accepting it, but it's sort of almost just been brushed under the carpet and then looks to move on. Certainly with President Trump, it's been a pretty unconventional presidency. And his use of social media and especially Twitter, really appears sort of unabated. His latest sort of rant and rave, if you like, has been centered towards LeBron James, the NBA star, and again that sort of provoked some pretty intense discussion, which hasn't sort of been helped by the fact that his wife has come out and appeared to contradict him. The First Lady's come out and said actually, he is doing good. He set up a school for less privileged children, and she'd be quite happy to go and visit it. Which appears to be completely opposed to the views that President Trump appears to be putting out, and certainly some of his views and language that was used in the tweets that was less than complimentary. Oil's recovered a little bit of ground as well. Still potentially there's some pretty major supply disruptions. Most noticeable obviously will be Iran, but that appears to be sort of a little bit sort of circumnavigated, if you like, because it would appear there are still countries buying oil from Iran. Supposedly Russia and China. But I say at the moment, potentially there is a little bit of a sort of supply disruption. And, as we head in towards the sort of Northern Hemisphere winter, it's just going to be interesting to see how that sort of plays through. Oil just below sort of $70 on WTI. And it'll just be interesting to see if there is a major sort of supply disruption, just how high that gets pushed. Little fresh news on Brexit. As I said before, Prime Minister May is on a bit of a charm offensive, trying to convince the Europeans that her proposals and her plans are good for both sides, really, both for the UK and also Europe as well, the EU. And it'll just be interesting to see whether she can sort of manage to convince them that it is a good deal. And then if that's the case, then it gets sort of put forward to the various parliaments, UK and the EU, to get ratified, so it can be put in place for March 2019. Because at present it's looking like potentially a hard Brexit for the UK, which wouldn't be particularly good for the UK economy. Some could even argue that Boris Johnson and his sort of cronies and gang, that's what they were sort of engineering for all along, and that's why they sort of resigned in the last couple of weeks and just trying to sort of force that issue towards sort of a hard Brexit, which they believe will be beneficial for the UK. At the moment, PM May is on a little bit of a charm offensive. The issue is that obviously, certainly in August, a lot of Europe is on holiday, and it's just going to be interesting to see how much, sort of traction she can actually get on that, and try and convince the Europeans that, her proposal is acceptable for both parties, really. Obviously for the UK and also for Europe as well. And that could be a pretty tough sell. Here in New Zealand, the government's had a little bit of good news in terms of the nurses. They appear to have sort of managed to negotiate an acceptable pay settlement. Now attention turns towards sort of the teachers, primary teachers, and also some of their own staff in terms of sort of IRD and MB. Just got to try and sort out those sort of pay negotiations. Sort of one down, still quite a few more battles to win, but the government's had a little bit of success out there. They now just have to come up with a successful deal for the teachers. But on the face of it, New Zealand economy is still pushing along at a pretty good rate. Growth is okay. Tourism seems to be holding up. Potentially there's a little bit of a fall in sort of business confidence, which will just be interesting to see if that sort of continues in towards the second half of this year. Now, as always, if you are looking for income options, there are plenty of alternatives available out there. And if you're interested in the discussion what's available, call us on 0800 867 323 or go to the website www.bayfinancialpartners.co.nz for lots of interesting articles, and we look forward to speaking to you soon.